Hello everyone, welcome back to another Woodworking Wisdom. Today we are doing a little magic wand. So we're going to do a bit of turning, a little bit different to the ones I've done on the past. We are still looking at spirals, but we're going to do a spiral cut on the scroll saw in a bit. So we've got a bit of turning to do first. We're going to shape our handle and the blade of the wand. And really quite simple shapes we're doing on the lathe. The decorative bit we really want to save for this spiral cut that we're going to do on the scroll saw. Nice and simple. This is the bit of timber I'm using today is just a bit of broom handle. So this is a bit of cheap old pine. You know, not much to it. It's probably about 1 inch across, and it's already round, so we don't really need to you know, fuss with roughing it down or anything. I'm going to use our brand new SK100 chuck. Really lovely thing. It's nice and lightweight compared to you know, some of the bigger chucks. I've got the pen jaws in here, so we've got that little bit more extra grip. You could use the pin jaws, something like that, but something that's going to support it along the length a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to get straight into it. A little bit of rough shaping. So just going to clamp down on our bit of pine. Just giving that a little whiz round, make sure it's not kind of waving around or anything like that. And we need to drill a little hole in this. Okay, so I'm going to not drill it all the way through. I'm just going to go down just in that top bit there. And then when we want to, you know, in these kind of Harry Potter, these Ollivanders wands, they've quite often got like a little core, like a feather or some sort of stone or dragon heart strings or something like that. So we're going to leave a little void in the middle there so that we can add our own core, make it a bit more kind of personal. If you're giving it away as a gift, it's got a bigger description. It's, you know, it's a ash wand with a phoenix feather in the middle or whatever. So we're trying to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit different. Okay, so like I say, we're going to drill this. So I need my drill chuck. That's got 8mm bit in it, and I think we're just going to go down to around about where these flutes start to end. So we're just going to take it in a couple of inches really. Let's get rid of this ring center. So just auto ejecting that one by pulling that quill right the way back. Let's bring that back in with our drill chuck or Jacob's chuck, and then we just need to clamp down on our drill bit. Good. So that's ready to go. This is actually one of those kind of lip and spur type drill bits, but I'm still just going to give myself a really small little centering mark with a skew, just so I know where center is, and hopefully that drill bit's going to hit bang on center. Let's be careful now. We know we've got a drill bit in the back end of our tailstock, and I really just want to hit on center there, a little bit too high with the tool rest, so just bring that one down and just take the tip of that skew and just create a little dimple bang on center. Going to turn my lathe off. Let's get all this out of the way here, and we can bring our drill bit up, and hopefully you can see that that little brad point there is hitting that little center mark that we've just made. Going to lock off the tailstock, drilling. I'm going to just turn the speed down to a little round about 500-600, somewhere in the middle there. Just holding on to the drill chuck, and I'm just going to advance that drill bit in. And that's seated really nicely. I'm not getting too much wobble or anything like that on the drill bit. It's doing its job. The waste isn't quite coming out as I'd like it, so I'm just going to back off a little bit, grab something like a pencil or whatever you got lying around, your bradawl or something. I'm just going to use a little Allen key here and just get rid of some of that waste. Just pushing the tailstock along a little bit till I feel that little bit of resistance, and then we can keep drilling in and just keeping hold of that drill chuck, just as a kind of a steady, really. Good. So this little void is going to act as like almost like a little secret compartment, or where we're going to put our core, but it's also going to be the tenon where the blade of the one's going to go in, or the mortise I should say. So let's turn that one off. We can get rid of our drill chuck, and then because we've got this lovely central hole, we can bring in our tailstock center. Just make sure that that's grabbed on the Morse taper there, and just put a little bit of pressure going that way. We don't want too much. We don't want to kind of split that hole. So coming in nice and close with the tool rest. This is the little robust 4-inch tool rest, really nice to use. Allows me to get really nice and close to the workpiece. And all I'm going to do really is just scrape a little kind of round on this. This is going to look really kind of plain and simple, but remember we're going to put that spiral cut on it. So that's the kind of decorative element in the handle of this wand. So we're not being too fussy with rolling beads or anything like that. Just a nice simple little round off on the end. Bringing the speed up now. That's around about the 1500 mark. And I'm just going to pop on that extractor. I'm a little bit more sensitive to wood dust these days. And just by swinging that handle, I'm creating a little round on the end there. Nice. Now, this is the part that I'm going to put in. So I've got a little dowel here. This is, I think, a 16mm dowel. That's going to be the blade. So what I want to do is just leave a bit of a flat there. So when I cut that 8mm hole that we drilled in here, I'm going to make a matching tenon on this, and then that's going to slide in. But remember, we've still got that full 16mm, and that wants to sit on a flat face really. So we've got that little flat there. I haven't gone right down to the centre. So that's that end done really. I'm going to give it a little sand off because, you know, we're scraping and this is a bit of pine, so it's you know, it's not giving it the greatest finish on the end there. So just a little bit of sanding. Again, just bring our tool rest out the way. I dropped the speed down there, but I didn't really need to. I'm just going to soften that end and actually just bring it along the length of this broomstick or broom handle, just to get rid of some of that kind of lacquer they leave on it. That might be a bit grabby when we're trying to rotate this when we're doing our spiral cut. So I'm just removing that kind of top layer really. And I'm just going to smooth that end in. Have a little peek. Just got that little tear to clear up. Might just drop back with the abrasive a little. Oh, it's being Running a bit too fine at 240, so I've dropped back to a 150. Just to tidy that up. Again, have a little peek, but make sure you're happy with it before you kind of turn it around. That looks good enough for me. And then, yeah, we're going to kind of just turn this around in the chuck, so we're holding the other end, and we're going to do something very similar on that end. Again, I'm going to bring that centre up too. We're going to have a little hole on the bottom there, but that's fine. And let's just sand that bit of lacquer off before we get going. And you can see how effective that extraction is. It's just taking all that airborne dust straight down the pipe. Good. That hasn't quite centered itself as the other end did. Let's just see if we can do anything about that. So back this one off a little. I'm going to do the same as I did earlier, get that centre with the skew. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but there was a little bit of a wobble going on. I'm not sure this is going to fix it, but hopefully it's going to help that seat just a little bit better. Just make sure everything's all good there. Worth just having a little go at that. Hasn't made a big difference, but you know, worth having a look at. So same sort of thing, we're going to just round that off using a bit of scraping. Let's come in a touch closer. Again, just swinging that handle round. Go a little bit closer to the centre with this one. And it's that swinging of the handle that's giving us that curve. Okay, again, let's have a little peek. Looks okay. And we're going to give that end a sand as well. So like I say, a really plain bit of turning, not too much fuss or not taking too much time to shape this. This is really just softening those ends, and we wanted to do that little bit of drilling on the lathe. I suppose you could drill that hole with a pillar drill if you've got a natural handle or something that you wanted to use. With this, because I'm doing that spiral cut on the scroll saw, I need to keep this nice and straight and flat so it will seat properly when I go to use it with the little jig and the scroll saw. Good. So that's looking okay. So let's take that one out of the chuck. And like I say, a really simple bit of turning, not much going on there. We've got a bit more of a round on that end, and we've got that flat there, which our dowel, our bit of beech dowel is going to sit in that end there, okay? That's why I've left that flat. So when we take this down to 8mm, and pop it in there. It's not going to be undercut. We're not going to have like a gap or anything. So I can see that that full diameter is going to sit on that flat. Happy with that. So we've got our bit of dowel. Let's just tighten up on that one. Get my chuck key. And I'm pushing that right back into the chuck. Nope, sorry, these pen jaws have a little step at the bottom. So I've just taken it to the back of the jaw there. And that's just grabbed it. Just full closure on those jaws. Has just grabbed it. Let's bring our tailstock centre up. And we're going to turn that little bit on the end, the little tenon. Okay, let's have a little look. Make sure we haven't got too much of a wobble on, and that's looking pretty good. Just going to engage that tailstock centre a little better. Just lock that one down and make sure everything's locked off. Okay, so let's grab a set of calipers. We've got our 8mm. Turn the lathe off. Just going to take that from the drill bit. So just closing these down on the drill bit and make sure they just pass over. We want beading and parting, or just a parting tool to do the job. And I'm going to create a little tenon on here. That's about 20mm or just under an inch, and that's going to push back into the handle. Let's get rid of some of this waste first. Drop the height on the tool rest there. Feel a little bit too high. This should really go bang on centre. Touch lower. So we're going on centre with the tool. We're using our calipers on the back end and just take a little amount off. Nice and slow. And just a really gentle pressure with those calipers. Okay, and then just as it pops over, that should be your 8mm. And we can chase the rest down to that diameter. Left this end bit just slightly oversized. I just want to test it on my handle before we get going. Again, be careful of this sharp bit in the tailstock when you're testing things like that. Another little test. So we don't want this to be kind of sloppy. We want it to be part of, you know, a really good fit. So when we put that glue on, it will swell up and it won't come out. It's not going to be too weak. So, should be really close. Just skimming a tiny bit off this time. And then I'm just going to use a touch of abrasive just to take off that hard corner. Oh, I'm being too careful, too cautious. It doesn't matter if it's just slightly underside. Like I say, that glue will swell this up. Oh, one more little skim and we're there. That's almost a friction fit on there. Interference fit. I'm going to go with a slightly wider kind of beading tool. See if we can come a touch closer. Hopefully that's got it. Oh, so close. Right, this time. Last time. Or we'll edit it out. Nearly there. Bear with me, folks. We're so close. I'm just going to do one for luck. Okay. So. Oh, that's great. That's going to go all the way there. I'm not going to push it in all the way. But that is fitting. Really snug little fit in there. Now we can have a look at the blade. So I'm going to turn this around in the chuck, just taper this down so we've got a nice kind of taper going right the way along the blade. Again, I'm not being too fussy with the kind of design or not rolling any beads or anything in it. So nice and simple. We're going to let the handle do all the talking. Okay, so this time that little tenon will slip further back into the chuck. And then we can grab on here, bring our tailstock up, just make sure that looks fairly central on there. Gonna just grip into that a little. Gonna change out our tool rest from the 4-inch. Oops. Look at that, I've made for it. Okay. So again, nice and close to that tool rest. Let's get the lathe spinning again. I'm not too worried about this little wobble here. We're going to taper that down. It will self-center once we get turning. So back to my skew. Going to bring my hand over the top just to kind of steady the piece. And we're going with that kind of planing cut. Just move my finger there so you can see what's going on. And there is going to be a little bit of waste up at this end, so I'm leaving a little pit where that center has gone in and just damaged the end there. So just kind of sliding along that bevel. cutting on the bottom third. And just bringing these cuts back a little further each time. Try and encourage that taper. So I've taken a bit more material off that, the kind of thin end, if you will. And then by bringing each cut a little bit further back each time, that will naturally get thinner as we go. So I'm not rushing these cuts, I'm just trying to make sure that skew is kind of constantly cutting as we come along the length. Trying to keep it in that same cut. Then we'll get that nice finish. So, just trying to keep this taper nice and constant. So every time we do a cut, just have a little step back, have a look at what's going on. And this hand's trying to keep the chisel at a constant kind of angle along. And I'm actually using my thumb across the top here to push. So not only is that kind of taking away some of the vibration, but it's also giving me that kind of area that I can just push or advance the chisel along the workpiece. And I'm not too worried about this bit of waste up here. I'm just bringing the cut up and stopping short of where the point of that tailstock centre is, just sort of creating that little dimple in the end. Cool. So fairly happy with that. Got a little bit there I just want to clean up. We'll take that cut right the way along to the end. We'll blend it in. Oh, just keep popping out that cut there. Nice and slow, slow it down. Good. So like I say, just a little taper on that one, we're not too bothered. We'll come in and part this off in a moment. I just want to sand it before we do that. So back on with the extractor. If you wanted to at this point, you could go back and check out the older wand videos that we did. You might want to put a little spiral along here, so you've got two spirals, one on the blade and one in the handle. There's all sorts you could do at this point if you wanted to roll any beads, put any other kind of detail into it, now's the time. And of course this could just be a twig. This could be a twig that you picked out in the garden. It doesn't have to be a turned, you know, something that's been turned. And I think I'm going to oil this rather than polish it. I'll oil this by hand with a brush rather than polish it here. I don't want it to be too glossy or shiny. But again, of course, if you did want to use something like a friction polish, you need to do that while it's still on the lathe. Let's have a little peek. Yeah, nice. So it's really nice and smooth. It has that kind of gradual taper. That's what we're looking for. This is going to be a fairly plain wand. Again, we don't want to detract too much from the kind of decorative element in the handle. So going back to my little 4-inch tool rest. Real luxury having different size tool rests for different projects. Again, this wants to go pretty much on centre. Just going to do a little V-cut. So I'm going to part it off around about there. So just chasing a little V-cut down with the tip of our skew. So we've got that tiny little bit that it's hanging on by. And that's come loose now. You can hear that little squeal. That's the two bits of wood kind of rubbing together. But that should just come off. Just snap that one off because we can just sand that end in. And I will probably blend that in by hand. A bit later, just to soften that end there. Because actually at the moment it just very slightly flares out where we had that bit of waste on the end. So I'm just going to knock back the worst of that. Let's go a bit rougher. Probably better to just take it out of the chuck and do this by hand, which I think we'll do next door. But just for now, get rid of the worst of it. And that's about it really for the turning. Let me turn the extractor off. So we've got our blade and we've got our handle. I know it looks really kind of basic at the moment, but this is going to look really nice. We're going to put a spiral cut through the handle, and I know that tenon fits. I don't want to force it just yet because we're going to do our spiral cut. We're going to put something in the middle and then glue that in. I don't want to force that in and kind of get it stuck in there and then not be able to do our lovely bits in there. So kind of stage one all done. We've got our handle, kept that nice and straight and parallel. I haven't done anything with the shape. That's really important for what we're going to do on the spiral cut. And we've got our blade, 2 bits to make our wand. So we're going to go to the craft room and do a bit of scroll sawing. So we're going to set back up and we'll see you in a minute. Hello, welcome back. So by the magic of television we've swapped into a different workshop now. We're in our little crafty workshop. We're going to cut that spiral on the scroll saw. So I've set my scroll saw up A couple of little things we'll just explain in a minute. But let's have a look on the bench at what we've already done. We've got here our really plain looking handle. It looks just not very pretty at all at the moment. We've got our little tenon that we cut, and we made sure that that fit nice and snug in there. Remember, we got that little flat so that these two pieces come up together and that sits on that shoulder. So we're going to cut a spiral in this. I'm going to show you how we do that. Just before we do, there's a couple of spirals that we've already cut on the scroll saw. So you can see there it kind of corkscrews into one another. This was all one piece when we cut it. And, you know, really nice, interesting shape that. You don't often see that. And again, that could be something you might want to take that component, cast it in resin and turn your handle out of that. You know, you could put fiery reds going through it. Check out some of the pigments and the kind of alcohol dyes and things like that that could look really amazing. So these little spirals, really quite cool little things. And of course, every now and then you get a bit of waste. You could again cast that. Here's one we did, just kind of playing around, trying to get shapes right and deciding whether I wanted that double twist. So that's been done on the lathe. Check out the older wand videos if you wanted to see how to do that. And then we've got that spiral running down. Probably needs a little pommel or something on the end to hold that together. Again, you could turn that, and that's a 16mm dowel. So you could drill a 16mm hole in a bit of wood, turn it, whack it on the end there, and again you've got a really cool little wand. And you can cut these off center. I'm going to cut mine on center, but you can create these like weird little helixes. And again, this is something I've not had too much practice with, but just having a little play around, creating some really kind of pleasing shapes. So back to our handle. I've got some electrician's tape here, and we're going to wrap this around here in a spiral. So sometimes this first bit you need to just readjust the tape a couple of times. Sometimes you'll kind of get lucky. That's not quite right there, so I need to change that angle to be a little bit less. And what we're looking to do is to wrap this around and then create a bit of a gap here. And I'm going to try and keep that parallel as we go down the handle. Keep that fairly parallel. We're not being too fussy about it, but this is where we're going to get our nice spiral shape from. Of course, you could do this a bit steeper, but what you're just trying to do is get that equal spacing. So every now and then you have to just back off with the tape and just kind of get that spacing right. Just going to snap that one off for now. So there we go. Kind of marked up with that. I'm just going to pop a quick drill hole in this because we're going to thread the blade right through the middle of this project and then come up and cut that spiral. So just going to pop onto the pillar drill a hole through, make sure we've got a correct way of holding this. So I'm using my little vise here. Let's come back to the bench. Got my little vise here, and that's got a V in this jaw, so it's going to hold that round really nicely. Just grab that. It's not going to twist, and that electrical tape's protecting it a little bit from the jaws, and also giving it a little bit more grip in there. All right. Don't want to tighten that too much. We don't want to bruise the piece of wood, but we do want to hold it nice and solidly. I'm going to go kind of in the middle with my my drill hole. Get that on the high point, or the highest point on your handle, and just drop that drill bit right the way through. So I've drilled that right the way through, and it's come up on a little bit of our tape there. So I'm just going to use a little carving knife, just where it's the the tape's kind of held in all that breakout. Just going to get rid of that. And then we've got our drill hole in there. And we can thread our blade right the way through. Okay. Pop my knife away so it's not sitting around on the bench. And let's go and visit the scroll saw. So on here, really simple, we cut a little V on a piece of wood, and I've kind of extended the piece of wood back past the blade, so there's a little bit of support, you know, beyond the cut. All right, because of course this piece of wood is lifting this component up off the table ever so slightly, and that will, you know, create vibration. So just extend the little V block out the back, and we're going to cut into it, and then I've just got a couple of hold down clamps to hold our block down. Okay, so a couple of little quick release hold down clamps. We need to undo our clamp, or blade clamp. I'm going to thread that up through that bottom one, bring our arm back down, and just drop that in there. Remember, this is a spiral blade we're using on the scroll saw. It needs to be to, you know, it's going to cut both ways then. But sometimes when we clamp on these spiral blades, if you get it on its edge, sometimes it will let go. So just make sure that you've really got that grip tight. Haven't got much room to ping for tension, so I'm just really using the quick tension on there, and then just putting a little bit on the back as well, on the back of the machine. So let's have a look. Let's make sure we're all ready to go. Speed is just over halfway on here. Not a great deal to grip onto. I might even grab the wand in a minute and start using that to bring this around. Just make sure my air filter cleaner is off on the extractor, and we can start to twist our project. So I'm bringing it slowly up to the line at first, and then a little bit of forwards pressure and twisting with both hands in front of and behind the blade. Our blower's not doing much down there, so let's get that engaged. Just check it's not in front of the camera, we're good. And we're just going to slowly and carefully rotate the workpiece. Again, that little bit of forward pressure, and also the twist. Trying to keep on the edge of that electrical tape, and you can see where the cut from the previous twist gone on, it's actually inside that tape. So we're going to have quite a tight spiral on this one. Try and keep the thing moving if you can. I found if you stop, the blade tries to kind of cut itself and correct itself, and you end up with little steps. So just trying to kind of keep the thing rotating. And we're not going to go right down to the bottom of this this handle. But with this being a spiral blade, it's cutting on its side at the moment. And I would suggest a new fresh blade each time you're kind of doing one of these. You get a dull blade on something this kind of thick, it tends to want to grab it and you know, lift it up. And I just don't enjoy it when when your workpiece is kind of jumping around and you feel like you've lost a bit of control. So I like to go nice and steady, fresh blade. So I'm kind of happy with how far that's coming down. What I'm going to do now is start to cut to the centre of that section. Oops. Keep that end sharp. And now we're going to start to rotate back the other way. And just slowly come back onto our line. And now we're twisting this anti-clockwise. And this hand's kind of pulling it forward. And the hand behind the blade is pushing it towards me. I just lifted it up out the V there a minute, but that was accidental. Coming up away from that that tape a little now, because we're quite close to our other cut. So I'm just making the decision to come away from that line of touch. Things are getting a little bit more jiggly because we've kind of cut through all the straight grain and the kind of structural strength of this piece of timber. Just keeping my fingers, you know, where they need to be to keep that downwards pressure. I'm just getting a slight bit of cramp in my hand, so just flex my hand a little bit. Don't just keep going if you're uncomfortable. Just make sure. You know, you stretch out if you're starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I think I'm going to just continue this spiral round a little bit, and then we'll back up again. So start creeping towards the centre there, and then twisting back the other way. Start that backwards or clockwise twist. Whoops. So you're going to get a little bit of that with these twisting. And just slowly twist that in. I'm just trying to blend in that little nub there. There we go. Turn that off. Lift up our arm, bring this away, and the extractor is on auto, so that should turn off in a moment. We're going to come back to the bench. Now I'm a little bit worried because I've done quite a tight spiral on this one, but like I say, I'm still kind of finding my feet with these spiral cuts, and you get these. We're still experimenting a little bit. Hopefully this will all go according to plan. So let's get rid of that tape, and we can start to. These bits don't come out really easily. You need to kind of tease them out a little, and be careful not to kind of snap the spiral that you want to keep. Something like a little bradawl will help, or maybe a thin screwdriver. Let me grab my little Proxon screwdriver here. I think that's going to be the perfect tool. Or something like your bradawl, something like that. Be careful if you're using your bradawl to pick these things out. Of course, that's really sharp. And these will kind of snap out, but just gently as you go. We don't want to snap our handle. It has got a little bit of a flex, so if you wanted to open it up a bit, you can kind of flex it slightly and just tease these bits out. I can feel it rotating up there, so it's all good. It should be fairly easy to come out. This is just snapping kind of along the grain of the pine. Again, give it a little flex, gently lift these pieces out. I'm scared each time I hear that snap that it's a part of the handle, not our waste material. So really gently, I'm going to put my thumb across both of those to support it and just flex that out. Breathing a little sigh of relief each time. So it can be a bit fiddly, but hopefully the effect on the handle will be worth it. Oh, we're getting there now. The last little bit. So again, putting my thumb straddling those two components that we want to keep, getting to the point where the leverage, just snap that. Phew. We made it, folks. So we've got this really cool little spiral going on down through the handle. Perhaps should have gone a little bit further down here. But like I say, still a learning process. Might even put a bit of pyro in here. We've got our little core that runs down the middle here, so we can stash a little feather or, you know, whatever it is you wanna put in there. So with a little bit of oil, a little bit of a sand up, you know, you get a really cool little effect on that. Again, you could fill that with resin, stick it back on the lathe, polish it up. All sorts you could do from this point. I quite often wanted to get a little 3D cut, little guarding or something across here that you could do on the scroll saw. But just an idea really, not quite the finished piece. I would probably get a bit of abrasive. So one of those kind of sanding belts that you get on the kind of belt sanders, the really thin ones. So I would take one of those. Let me get my little sander out. Take one of these, just pop that off. I can't find the one that I've got usually. And then you can just push that through there, hold it in the vise, and just bring that back and forth. That's going to take off any hard edges here. Of course, you could just get in there with a normal bit of abrasive to tidy things up. So you could, just sand these little edges off, all these hard edges. Have a little tidy up. Actually, not too bad inside, internally. It's got a nice, not too bad a finish. So not too much sanding to do down there. But you can knock these off. You can open these up using more, you know, if you wanted to get a file in there, you could open that spiral up a little bit more. I would, if you're going to do that, reinforce it somehow right down through the middle here. But yeah, the beginnings of a nice little wand, and I think we'll carry on with that, and you know, we'll show it to you again once we get a little bit more time to finish, a little bit of sanding and some oil. That's going to make a really cool little thing ready for that time of year. It's Halloween. For all you kind of budding witches and wizards out there, or as a really nice gift to someone. So that's it. We'll see you again soon for more woodworking wisdom. If you've enjoyed the content, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. We really appreciate it and really appreciate all your support. We'll see you soon.